Greetings, Star Citizens, and welcome to another beautiful day in the verse. And today we take a look at the Aegis Sabre. Now, the Aegis Sabre is definitely a top tier fighter, and it's currently competing for Dogfighter of the Year against the Mustang Delta, which, like I said in my last video, is a very unfair comparison because Mustang Delta just is not going to compete with a Sabre unless the Sabre pilot is extremely bad or the Mustang pilot is extremely good. They're just, if you're on equal terms with a Sabre versus a Delta, the Sabre is going to win pretty much every time, if not every time. It's a top tier fighter. It competes against Super Hornets, it competes against Vanguards, it competes against the best fighters in the verse. Now, personally, I've kitted my Sabre out with 4 size 3 fixed tarantula weapons. However, obviously you could have 4 size 2 gimbals instead if you prefer a gimbal loadout. I personally prefer a fixed loadout. I like the extra firepower you get from the bigger guns, but regardless, let's see how this baby fights. So jumping straight into the action, I'm going to take this Sabre to an ICC probe, and we'll fight some of the pirates found around these ICC probes. And I might do another ICC probe depending how much we get to say about the Sabre. So, in my last video, when I did the Mustang Delta, I sort of said that the Sabre isn't a dogfighter, and that it isn't classed as a dogfighter, so it's a bit of an unfair matchup, and it shouldn't be in Dogfighter of the Year. And a lot of people took that as me saying the Sabre cannot dogfight, which is absolutely not the case. I'm not saying the Sabre can't dogfight. I'm not saying it's a bad dogfighter. It is definitely one of the best in a dogfight. But what I was trying to make out is that it's not really a true dogfighter. It's a stealth fighter, and to me, that just puts it out of the dogfighting category because it goes against dogfighting. It's a fairly big ship, it's a fairly heavy ship, and it is fairly easy to hit a Sabre. Yes, the Sabre is probably going to beat you if they're good, but it is still fairly easy to hit, and it's not as slippery as something like a Mustang will be when the Mustang gets its issues tweaked, because we know the Mustang is meant to be a very sort of quick, agile pest, a bit more like an M50 more than what it is now. So yeah, you can see we're making very short work of the pirates. Obviously the pirates aren't the strongest targets to compete against, and it would be better to show them against Vandal Swarm, but even against Vandal Swarm with 4 size 3s, you're gonna quickly make short work of any competition. So, what do I personally think about the Sabre? Personally, it's one of my favourites, if not my favourite ship. I first bought the Sabre when it first went on concept sale, and just like the Vanguard, I ended up melting it down when it got flight ready because it had issues when it was first flight ready. A lot of those issues are now ironed out, so I'll most likely get the Sabre back into my hangar because it's one of the best looking ships for my personal preference. Obviously that is just my preference, and it's a subjective preference. Not everyone's going to like the style, but for me, I love the style of the ship. I love the stealth look of it, and it just looks like a mean ship, and it is a mean ship. It's got a ton of firepower, and it's going to make short work of any opponent. It's got a ton of agility. It's an extremely agile ship. It's an extremely fast ship. Obviously, it's not the fastest ship in the game. It's not going to compete with M50s and 350Rs in terms of top speed. But for how much firepower it is an extremely quick ship, and that gives it a massive edge in any sort of fighting situation. If you're fighting Super Hornets, you can easily run away from them, outrun them, catch up to them, whatever you need to do. And if you get all 4 weapons on target, you're gonna do a ton of damage, especially if they're fixed. Now, whether a gimbaled loadout would be better, I don't know. I personally didn't like the gimbaled loadout for the Sabre, just because it's so agile, I didn't feel it was necessary. I didn't really find I had much issue keeping my weapons on target in any sort of fighting maneuvers, whether it be a joust. Obviously a joust, you're going to easily keep it on target, and you're going to easily be able to do a 180 spin when you pass your target, so there's not much need to go with gimbals there. And in the old typical noobish turn fighting or circle strafing, whatever you want to call it, I found I could easily keep my fixed weapons on target even in that situation. And personally, that's the only situation I would normally prefer a gimbaled loadout over a fixed loadout. So I stuck with the bigger fixed guns and I went with the tarantulas. Even though the tarantulas aren't the best option, it would probably be better to have Panther repeaters, but I like the tarantulas, I like my ballistics, I just like the way they sound, I like the way they look, and it's just a personal preference. But if you're after the best damage and the best cost efficiency, I would definitely go with Panther repeaters instead, or just any other energy weapon over the tarantulas. Obviously the benefit of the tarantula is you can fire them quite a lot before they overheat. They don't really overheat that quickly, and that's one thing I like about them. Obviously the Panther repeaters can also fire for a long time before overheating, so yeah, a Panther repeater still better than the Badger, obviously better than the Badger repeater, it's a size above it. Still better than the tarantula in my opinion, but I just prefer the tarantula, so that clears that up. So let's go on to this next one, which is the Constellation Rescue. I've still not got through all of these ICC probe missions. Something always goes wrong. I try to get through all of them, and the sound will bug out, or the game will crash, or something will ruin my experience of trying to get all, I think 9 or 10, I can't remember how many there is. I think there's 9 ICC missions in total, or ICC scenarios should I say. And yeah, in typical ICC error, as I was just talking about, something always goes wrong. My unidentified signal seems to have disappeared. Not sure where it went, not really bothered anymore. It's gone, and yeah. But regardless, that's been my luck at the Sabre. I think the pros of the Sabre, like I said, extremely agile, extremely fast, extremely stylish in my opinion. The cons are, well, there's not really many. To be perfectly honest, there's not really much downsides to it. It is fairly squishy if you do get hit, but I say that as in fairly squishy in terms of for its size. If you're comparing big heavy ships, it's still very durable compared to smaller fighters. It's still one of the most durable fighters. It's still got a ton of redundancies, or essentially it's meant to have a ton of redundancies. I'm not sure if they've fully worked out the redundancies and the way they work. I'm not sure if they've fully ironed those issues out, but regardless, when we do get the full game of it's gonna have tons of redundant systems, which is gonna make it extremely useful, extremely durable, and it's just gonna escalate that stealth capability. You're gonna be able to avoid taking any damage at all. So let's just try for a manual landing. Perfect. We are still sliding, but that's not a problem. But regardless of that, with this very low FPS ending to the video, I'm going to end this video here. I hope you enjoyed this video, guys, and I will see you in the next video. Laters, taters.